My AirPods are alerting me of something. I have no idea what they're alerting me to. I am connected to a computer. I'm really confused. It is 7:14 a.m. on a Friday. There is nothing for them to alert me about. But here we go. Um, so, picking up where I left off, the black farmers are the ones who suffer the most from the repressed economy in the South. In our upper South, our mines, our iron mills, and our tobacco factories, they allow for employment of some black workers. Um, and we still have some black farmers who own their land. So in South Carolina and Georgia, these giant rice plantations that had been around, they kind of just, bleh, that's the technical term, if you were wondering. And in response to this, a lot of these formerly enslaved in the area were able to acquire the land and they become self sufficient farmers. But in most of our deep south, so the area that you think of as the traditional cotton area, so Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, Louisiana, a little bit of Arkansas, they still own a similar amount of land in 1900 as they did in the 1870s. So there is no growth really in our statistics in that 30-year period. Um, in our southern cities, we certainly have some institutions that are founded by Black people during Reconstruction. So we have schools, churches, businesses, civic clubs, civic organizations, and they do help form these kind of blossoming and really unique Black urban communities. But our labor market, so everyone has to support themselves. It's racially divided, and Black men are excluded from skilled and professional occupations for the most part, and Black women are limited to wage work like maids, childcare, and they're excluded from occupations open to white women. We obviously do have certain exceptions to this rule because of segregation. So, Black people were not allowed to go to white doctors. So many, well, I guess all Black doctors were Black themselves. Um, Many of these people who find themselves at the bottom of the South kind of economic system, social system, every system, they get out. They migrate out of the South in 1879 and 1880. Almost 60,000 African Americans moved to Kansas. They want political rights. They want safety. They want education. They want economic opportunity. They want all the things that everyone else wants. And they just want to be in an area where they have the freedom to aspire to these things. They liken this move to the Exodus from the Bible. Religion plays a very heavy role in post-Reconstruction life for African Americans, and they are referred to as exodusters. We're making the exodus from the South into an area where maybe we can live the life that we deserve. Most Black people, though, have no choice but to stay in the South. It takes money to move. It takes connections to become established in a new city. So economic expansion that is taking place in the North, there are still a lot of African Americans are excluded from this kind of economic opportunity. Most employers only offer jobs to white migrants and European immigrants, not Black people. And it's not really until World War I that jobs do become available for Black people. And this is what helps inspire something called the Great Migration that happens late teens, early 20s. And we'll talk about that when we get to that time frame in the textbook. The Black middle class is supported in urban areas. So mostly people like teachers, like I said, doctors, or not coroners, but funeral home workers. That's not the word. I can't think of the word right now. Um, Shopkeepers, and it's really, these people are serving their own community. We don't have racial crossover. Again, like I said, black men are not allowed to be supervisors or work in white collar jobs. And like I said, also, the women are only for domestics. You can't be a secretary, you can't be a typist. So the Knights of Labor does end up dissolving, but some local unions who have like they're like dock workers and mine workers. I'm not sure what jobs there are in mines, but okay. They have a lot of black members because they see that there is strength in numbers, and if they want anything done, they're going to have to work in the systems available to them. Let me see if there's anything else I want to talk about with Kansas. No. Okay, so got that. Come on. Okay, this is called a Southern baptism. This is a photograph. We don't know who the photographer was. It is, like I was talking about before, the church becomes a very important role in Black life. If you can remember back, it was very important during the time of slavery, and it tends to be important for people who find themselves in a situation where they are oppressed and do not find a way out of that oppression. This is a very traditional, old-timey baptism. You can see the very typical clothing of the late 1800s, early 1900s. I really like looking at old photographs. So, sorry, I can't do this right. Okay. This is an advertisement for people to go to Kansas. Let's go. It's better there. See, this is published in Nashville in 1878. This is Nicodemus, Kansas. It is a community established by Black people moving out of the South looking for opportunity. And I don't know who this weirdo is standing on the roof, but I don't know how long he lasted. So if we're looking at politics, remember we have the South in their situation that they call the redemption, which I don't know, from all the things that I can tell, it didn't do much redeeming, but far be it from me to say anything to all these people who've been dead a really long time. While Black voting and Black office holding didn't stop completely, the Democrats do solidify their control of state and local affairs. They redraw district lines, and they are able to substitute positions that had formerly been elected. They turn those into appointed positions, so that way, their friends stay in power. There currently is this huge thing in celebrity culture with nepo babies, so nepotism. Your parents are famous, you're automatically going to have a leg up on what's going on, and all of these children of famous people are like, I don't know, I've had to work just as hard. But it's like, yeah, okay, you grew up in LA, you're friends with people whose parents are powerful, you're in a lot better of a situation than some random person who maybe grew up in Pearl, Mississippi and doesn't know anyone. So that's what we're talking about with nepotism. It's this idea of you already having connections through none of your own work or effort. Like you just happen to be in the right place. Or you were born there. Like it's not even anything you didn't move. You just were like, oh, I'm a baby, and here we are. I don't know what I was doing with that. Political opportunities are becoming more and more restricted in the 1880s and 1890s. My earbuds just started beeping at me again, and it's very irritating, and I don't understand why. And it's not really until the 1990s that the number of black legislators in the South approached the level that was seen during Reconstruction. So my lifetime, it was not until my lifetime that we saw the amount of black office holders as we did during Reconstruction. So that's more than a little depressing. For black men who are talented and they have ambition, they have opportunities in, business for that caters to the black community, law, church, and these are the things that they decide are going to offer them, and they're right, they offer them more advancement than politics. And so now at this point, the women step in. They're like, okay, well, you got tired of this, and we're still in a pretty bad situation. We will always be at the bottom of the heap because we are both female and black. So the National Association of Colored Women is founded in 1896, and it brings together some of these civic organizations, some of these local ones that are open only to women, and they start to lobby for women's rights and, advancement of black people. Most of these activists do come, again, from your small urban black middle class, and this is replicating the exact experience that we see during the fight for abolition and Seneca Falls. So things are just cycling through. We initially people wanting social change may start off with men, and then the women step in and they take over, and this is just how we are seeing these patterns work out. Let me see, let me make sure I don't miss anything. Oh, and they really do urge, quote unquote, respectable behavior. So, like, don't be trashy, don't be stupid, but also, like, we are just as respectable as anyone else. We are just as advanced. There's no difference here. These black activists aid poor families. They're trying to teach child rearing. They don't like gambling. They don't like drinking in the black communities. And there are some of these poor people in this community who are like, why are you coming here and telling me what to do? Why are you saying that, I have to change anything about my life? But they want to have black people considered as respectable as white people. And for some of these women, by modeling this behavior and by copying the behavior that they are seeing in the wider population with white people, they think this is kind of like, we're going to show them that we are not second-class citizens. We are not people that are lower than them. We have our lives exactly like they do. Black Southerners are continuing to vote even after Reconstruction falls apart, and the Republican Party does remain competitive in some areas. In Virginia, there's a coalition of black Republicans and Democrats who are against this Redeemer movement, and they form an alliance known as the Readjuster movement. So the name comes from like readjusting state debt, so it's not like anything fun. It's all debt. They are in charge of the state between 79 and 83. And Tennessee and Arkansas also see black people and white people uniting to challenge the Democratic Party. So even though our populists do have limits, this like the Democrats witnessing this kind of like biracial, political, whatever you want to call it, they start to get kind of nervous. And so this is when we really start seeing an increase in the move to disenfranchise black people. And the book points out that in North Carolina, the end of the Populist Republican Coalition government in 1898, which was accomplished by a violent campaign that culminated in a riot in Wilmington, where a lot of black people were killed, was followed by the elimination of black voting. So we're not even going to pretend anymore. Between 1890 and 1906, every single southern state has laws or constitutional provisions put in place meant to eliminate the black vote. Southern legislatures have laws that seem as if they are not racially motivated, but they're designed to end voting by black people. Our most popular form of this that happens in like all across the South is the poll tax. So it's a fee that you have to pay. Literacy tests, you have to prove that you're able to read in order to vote. And funny enough, sometimes that reading could be one thing for a white person and one thing for a black person. And the people who are there to vote have to demonstrate an understanding, quote unquote, of the state constitution. We also have 6 states that are adopting a grandfather clause that says some places put in place a law saying that descendants of I'm like mixing myself up. So the grandfather clause, we know what that is. If your grandfather could vote before the Civil War, so 1860, then you are automatically able to vote without any of these restrictions on your enfranchisement. So shockingly enough, who was not allowed to vote before 1860? Yeah, you answered that. Okay. The grandfather clause is obviously so racially motivated that the Supreme Court in 1915 does away with laws for violating the 15th Amendment. But I think that's a good long time that it stays in place in order to keep people from asserting their constitutional rights. Some white people they talk about how disenfranchisement is good government. It purifies politics. It ends fraud. It ends violence. It ends voting manipulation. But they're the ones doing all that stuff. Like, those are the people that are doing the intimidation, the fraud, the violence. A Charleston newspaper comes right out and does not hide the lead. It says that the white South does not desire or intend to ever include black men among its citizens. The Democrats continue with this rhetoric of black domination. They don't want them to have the right to vote, because if they do, then they're going to come in, they're going to just take over, and oh God, who wants that to happen? Election officials tended to let white people who did not meet our new voting qualifications to register, but at the same time, we also have a lot of poor and illiterate white people not being able to vote because they can't read, they can't pay the poll tax. And the rich white people aren't too upset about this. I mean, you don't want somebody voting against your interests when they're all poor, because they certainly don't have the same needs and desires that you do. Let's see. As late as 1940, only 3% of adult black Southerners were registered to vote. And this reverses this movement to disenfranchise black voters. It reverses everything that happens in the 1800s in regards to expanding democracy. At this point, you've got a whole group of people now that they are given the right to vote, they have the right to vote, and they want to assert this right, and they're not allowed to. In 1891, the United States Senate defeats a proposal for federal protection of black voting rights. And apart from invalidating the grandfather clause, the Supreme Court approves pretty much all disenfranchisement laws. So it says that according to the 14th Amendment, any state that deprived male citizens the right to vote was supposed to lose part of its representation in Congress, but it was violated. And so there we are. And now we find ourselves in a similar representative position. Representative, that sounded like I was like drunk or something. Find themselves in a similar representative position as pre-war, only now there's no limit on their population counting. So as sad as it is, we now have mostly black people not being allowed to have any say in politics, yet they're counted towards the federal representative allotment as full citizens instead of 3/5 anymore. It's like, you took 2 steps forward and then ran a mile back. All right, I'm going to have to stop it there because it's getting close to time. So there's going to be like 1 billion videos for this chapter. So I'm sorry, but I'm going as fast as I can.